Let's talk more about preventing child neglect and how you can share in that responsibility. Child neglect is a serious and pervasive issue. Let's dig a little deeper. There are 4 sections to this training. You have already completed Explore the Basics, where we defined child neglect and its many forms, Fact or Fiction, where we examined some assumptions often made about child neglect. Now let's think about everyone's role and responsibility in preventing child neglect. If you wish to learn even more, there are additional resources available on the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds website, www.ctfalliance.org, and on the website for the National Child Abuse and Neglect Technical Assistance and Strategic Dissemination Center, CANTASD, a service of the Children's Bureau, at www.cantasd.org. Let's think together about why preventing child neglect is everyone's responsibility. Listen as some parents suggest what might be done as a first step.
I really think that what would be helpful for people like me that have been through so many systems and to look at everyone out there to be able to figure out how to get through the systems is for there to be knowledge about neglect. I don't think that enough people know. I don't think that everybody knows what neglect looks like,
Right.
or even how to face it, or how to ask for help. And I mean educating the public about things, to talk about the issues, to talk about the things that nobody wants to talk
to
about.
destigmatize the neglect
Yes.
issues.
As a quick refresher, let's remember the definition of child neglect. Child neglect is a failure to meet children's basic needs, and that failure places children in harm's way. Child neglect is more than a family matter. As an individual, you have a role to play. Families have an important role, just as communities do, and society as a whole. It is everyone's privilege and responsibility to help prevent child neglect. One of the factors to consider in each of these roles is the part culture plays. Culture shapes everything we do. It is woven into how we think, feel, and act. Culture shapes the way we express ourselves. As individuals, in our families and our relationships, in our communities, and in society. A more effective and holistic solution to preventing child neglect is having each one of us, our families, our communities, and society as a whole, take an active role. That active role happens when we build protective factors as a shield against the risk factors that can contribute to child neglect. Consider the protective factors that are a part of this important shield: parental resilience, social connections, concrete support, social emotional competence of children, knowledge of parenting and child development, and nurturing and attachment. These protective factors are operational in all of the dimensions of our lives. As individuals, most of us have aspirations to develop and maintain good health, self-esteem, coping skills, hobbies and interests, the best aspects of our own personality factors, and good social skills. Protective factors help us build these strengths and may help to protect us from the effects of risk factors in our lives over which we may have little control, such as disability, poor health, premature birth, isolation, temperament, behavioral problems, childhood trauma, and young age. Listen to this parent discussion about the value of promoting positive social and emotional development of children and nurturing and attachment as protective factors.
You know, I can remember for me and other parents that I worked with, sometimes you don't even necessarily realize that you're neglecting your children.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that because they had a roof over their head and food on the table and clothes on their back, that I was being a good
Yeah.
mom.
Right.
I didn't think for a second that my not being there for them and me not actually taking care of them and nurturing them, that I was neglecting them.
And I agree with you completely, and I think that that piece of
neglecting our children's emotional needs is something that those of us who've struggled with substance abuse have to come to terms with. That we, whether we were physically present or not, whether we physically met our children's needs most of the time, I don't think any of us can say we were there emotionally for our kids.
Right.
And we did not meet their emotional needs.
Right.
And that's neglect too.
In our families and relationships, we strive for strong family structure, secure attachment, stability, open communication, good modeling, supportive environments, and positive relationships. Protective factors like parental resilience and knowledge of parenting and child development can help build these strengths in our families and relationships, and may help to protect us from risk factors like domestic violence, addiction, age of parents, isolation, mental illness, history of neglect, family structure, inaccurate expectations of child development, and stressful life events.
What I learned after going through this child welfare system the last time and really engaging and embracing the services, I learned that I was also neglecting my children's developmental needs.
yes.
Oh, yes.
I did not know that
Yes.
my children had milestones that they need. So I can definitely see that I neglected my children's needs developmentally. I can see the difference in my older children than my younger child based on what they needed at those stages, and I was not able to give it to them.
We all rely on our communities and neighborhoods that are strong and where we hope to find an empowering connection to the faith or support community of our choice, safety, quality childcare, good schools, mentors, access to services such as healthcare and social services, and transportation. Again, protective factors like social connections and concrete support can help build these strengths in our communities and may help protect us from risk factors over which we have little or no control, such as poverty, lack of safety, isolation, lack of services, apathy, poor educational opportunities, and exposure to environmental toxins. In this video, listen as parents talk about a variety of ways communities can help support families and prevent child neglect.
Parents do want what's best for their children, but a lot of times they need the help to make that happen. And that help should come from the community.
I can give an example of an institution that's sort of like a one-stop shop, right? Where you go in and they actually have nutritional classes there. They have a pantry there. They have, for lack of a better word, it's an assignment shop, not an assignment shop, but where you go and you get clothes if you need clothes. They have a daycare on premises, right? And that's an institution that I would consider would be a place that you could go to that would prevent a neglect situation, right? They're centered in the community,
Right.
and anyone can walk in there and get what they need. People trust the institution, right? They don't have, there's no stigma tied
Right.
to them for it, and they know that the community needs it.
And I really believe that the faith-based community has an enormous opportunity through even simple programs. Like I heard about a program where single moms could bring their car like one Saturday a month, and they could actually get the oil changed in their car free of charge. Think about, as a single parent, that $30 that you would have had to have spent, that you could actually do something productive with it. And also to feel a part of the community and to feel like the community had lended a hand to you in a really productive way.
In a society that values children and families, we constantly strive for laws, policies, and funding that is adequate to support families, equitable educational opportunities, acceptance and tolerance, opportunities to help others, and the political will to make a difference. All of the protective factors help build a strong society and may help to protect us from risk factors such as lack of supportive laws, inadequate policies and funding, lack of political will, involvement in the judicial system, lack of concern for others outside our own families and communities, and lack of knowledge and understanding about child neglect. Listen as parents discuss what society might look like if people work together with integrated services in a more holistic way.
I think what would be helpful in communities is the systems to stop operating in silos. Especially social services systems need to integrate themselves because we're sharing the same clients and then but we're not sharing the same information. So we're dealing with parents and families in piecemeal. We need to deal with them in a holistic, comprehensive way, and the systems needs to come together and be more collaborative and have a community center for social needs.
It is a bigger responsibility of community and society to be strong enough to help families support their children. And for society, I would say the bigger takeaway for you is that you're going to have families that are healthy and stronger, and also children that are healthy and stronger who will contribute to society in a healthy way. And I do believe we are seeing it. We pay now or we pay later. And for me, it is pay now. It is to be committed to families and community, and building families and communities up and making them stronger so that kids in themselves can be raised in their homes, in their communities, and communities will be stronger. Thereby, we'll have a stronger society, I believe. If we pay up front, we can do a lot to avoid paying later. And it's very costly when we pay later to communities, to families, and I think society as a whole is very costly.
As individuals, we each have responsibilities to ourselves, our families and relationships, our communities and neighborhoods, and society as a whole. The protective factors are critical in building the strengths that we strive for in each of these areas. Consider which protective factors you currently have in your life. Nurturing and attachment, knowledge of parenting and child development, social emotional competence of children, concrete support, social connections, and parental resilience. How can you use the protective factors? In your life? In your family and your relationships? In your community? And in society to help prevent child neglect? When we all work together, child neglect is preventable. It is everyone's responsibility to prevent child neglect. There is still more to learn. In the next section, we will learn about what we all can do to prevent child neglect through manageable steps and strategies. Support for this training was provided by the Office on Child Abuse and Neglect, Children's Bureau, Administration for Children and Families, U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, through the National Child Abuse and Neglect Technical Assistance and Strategic Dissemination Center, CANTASD, contract number HHSP 233-201-400025C, in partnership with the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds. CANTASD is funded by the Office on Child Abuse and Neglect to create resources and develop peer learning activities, including the National Conferences on Child Abuse and Neglect, for those engaged in primary prevention and early intervention to promote the safety and well-being of children, youth, and families. The National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds provides training, technical assistance, and peer consulting opportunities to state children's trust and prevention funds, and strengthens their efforts to prevent child abuse and neglect. Parents from the Birth Parent National Network, BPNN, helped to provide the video conversations in these learning sequences. The BPNN is an expanding national network of hundreds of birth parents and organizations working together to support families and influence child welfare systems. It is supported by the National Alliance of Children's Trust and Prevention Funds and Casey Family Programs.